Well, congratulations, you guys.
Thank you.
I love this movie. It's so badass. It's so hardcore. Oh, and I love sci-fi in general, but this is just amazing. Talk about, first of all, Leigh. I love your horror movies and serious movies. So this is more of a sci-fi action thriller. How's that transition like for you?
It's pretty good. I feel like sci-fi movies and horror movies are closely related. A lot of the sci-fi movies I love are sci-fi horror movies, like The Thing, Aliens, Alien, The Terminator. I mean, The Terminator is basically a slasher movie with a robot doing the slashing. And I just think that they complement each other well. You know, there is that horrific side to science fiction. You know, you can imagine things going wrong with science pretty easily. And that's how you get, you know, AI gone wrong movies and alien invasion movies. And so I felt like I was sticking within the lanes of what I had done, but I definitely enjoyed hitting different beats, especially action beats. You know, action scenes are very mechanical, just like scare scenes, but there's a whole different thing and a whole different process going on. I had fun with stunt choreography. I'd never done that before, and we were lucky enough to have great stunt guys, so it was fun.
Nice. And Logan, I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time. Dark Blue Devil,
Thanks,
big
man.
fan. So
go back.
yeah, in this character, you
Deep
kind of that's right. You play this individual who's kind of conflicted because this other entity is trying to control him. I mean, how do you play that aspect so well? Because it comes off very convincingly on the screen.
Well, it's written. Lee's script is right there. You know, this is a guy who's holds on tight to the analog world, and then we find ourselves that, you know, we're in the future, we're in a digital world that he kind of butts up against. So it's right there in Lee's script. That's the easy part, is reading a script that good, and then just kind of aligning my vision with, hopefully, with the directors, Lee's, and that was quick. We both wanted to make the same film and tell the same dude's story, so it's right there. I had it easy.
Is it a different experience shooting this sci-fi compared to a sci-fi like Prometheus for you as an actor?
No, because I had two great directors, Leigh and
What
Ridley.
he's saying is that I'm as good as Ridley Scott.
There you go.
It's really good. The $5 bill underneath the camera.
$5 is going to cost a lot more than that.
But I mean, you know, on both of those days, the first thing you hear, whether it was on set Prometheus or Upgrade, was, let's let the directors and the actors have the set, and you find the scene. And so both approaches were the same, and both trusted their departments. So it was very similar, and you know, I think the proof is in the pudding, because we didn't have the money that we had on Prometheus, but it's
little more money on Prometheus.
Just skosh. But I felt like what Leigh was able to make in such a realized, beautiful world and reality in the future was just as impressive, because it's really an incredible, immersive experience in a way that you don't normally get for that price point.
Let's get to my favorite question here. The fighting styles in this movie. Oh my goodness. Can you talk a bit about what you incorporated?
Well, when I wrote the script, I wrote down that the fighting style was strange and stilted.
Okay.
I just wrote one sentence and thought, I'll deal with that later. And then later, when I was in pre-production, you have to actualize it. Like, what does that mean? And we knew that we didn't want it to adhere to any set style, like Taekwondo or Kali or whatever. We didn't want it to be a martial art you could recognize, you know, Aikido or something. We wanted to almost invent a new fighting style, if we could, in the sense that, what would a computer do? And so you start thinking about computers, they always take the path of least resistance. They're problem-solving machines. So they're not interested in breaking someone down. They're more brutal than that. If they can kill you with one hit, they're going to do that. And so Logan and myself and the stunt team started talking more about a fighting style where it was these short, brutal hits that were going for the maximum impact, you know, hit someone in the chest, stop their heart. And what that looked like once we saw the actors train was kind of interesting, you know. And then we added some elements to it. The way we shot it was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We strapped a phone to Logan's body under his shirt, which the camera could actually lock to, and the camera would sit on a gimbal within this camera housing and move with him. So it tips the world on its axis. It always keeps the phone, and therefore Logan, as the center of the gravity of the shot. So the world moves and Logan stays still.
Mm.
And that was a kind of off-putting thing that I think added to the fight scene. So we did what we could within the budget we had to make it unique. You know?
Yeah, I saw those sequences and they were awesome.
Oh yeah, great, yeah. Cool.
Now, the challenge for you as a performer, because your character, kind of the body moves and has a mind of its own as he fights. How was that for you?
Well, it was kind of to pick up what Leigh was saying. It was like rubbing your belly and patting your head. It was a head on a stick, and we wanted to treat Gray as an emotional passenger on top of a very unemotional, clinical fighting machine beneath him. So, we worked hard on neutralizing me. I worked with a movement coach that Leigh got that kind of built the silhouette. And the biggest thing we knew is we didn't want him to feel big like Arnold. That's not who Leigh cast. But what we could do is get him very neutral in position and also in juxtaposition to the hunched over Gray or the quadriplegic Gray. And that meant a lot of early mornings, deep stretching to get my bad posture out of me. And then, of course, to just throw a placeholder here and not gain any muscle memory in the face or in the emotion, so that we would really drill these dances, these choreographies, and all of the pedestrian movement as well, without adopting any muscle memory, so that on the day we could be improvisational up top. While everything down here was very unimprovisational, we had Cy Maiden who voices STEM in my ear the whole time. So what we found when we got to the day of the first fight, which is the first fight in film, was because we pursued it so vigorously in its realism, it actually was kind of funny and absurd in a very real way. And then Leigh was smart enough to kind of take that and run and guide me, kind of waft me towards and Simon towards those moments.
When it comes to futuristic sci-fi kind of movies, filmmakers have different visions of what the future might look like. Can you talk a bit about when developing this project, like how you design the cars? Like maybe there are some things like, I don't want to have flying cars. I want to make it more grounded. Like, can you talk a bit about that aspect?
Well, I knew I wanted it to be in the very near future, just around the corner. There was even a moment where I considered setting the film in the present day. But I felt that it wouldn't work. Some of the concepts worked better in a near future world, but I was keen to avoid a world that was unrecognizable or fantastical to the audience. I love movies like Blade Runner, but I was going for something very touchable, like it was just out of reach from where we are now. Your fingertips kind of scraped it. And so in the production design, we were very careful to reflect that and selective about where we brought the future in. We worked on the designs, like with the car, we used cars that exist now. BMW and Mercedes and all these big car companies, they have prototype cars, automated cars. And you see the cars they design, it's almost as if they're designing towards the future. They're trying to make something futuristic, whatever that word means. And so we looked at those designs. We definitely wanted to stay away from the whole flying cars look. We wanted something that you could almost see someone driving down the street in LA and be like, whoa. And so that was the running theme of all the production design was, is this something we can actually see in our world? Is this something we can imagine?
Now, I mentioned the word hardcore earlier, because it's an awesome movie. Talk a bit about how much you wanted to push this as far as the brutality and the violence of this nature. Because I know you came from a horror background, so you probably have that familiarity with violence and brutality.
Right. I mean, yeah, a lot of movies I love are like hardcore genre movies, action movies. So just by that token, I find myself drawn to these movies that are kind of violent. And the movies that I was really modeling upgrade on were films from the 80s, like The Terminator and
Yes.
Hardware and RoboCop and Total Recall. These films that are kind of visceral. You know, they aren't able to create huge cinematic worlds in IMAX the way films are today. So they had to contain the sci-fi, and there was kind of a brutality in their depiction of this sci-fi, and that's what I was going for. So I always felt the violence in this movie served the story of that Jekyll and Hyde aspect of this story of somebody watching their body do something and not being able to do anything about it. It's like watching your hands choke somebody and you don't want to do it, but you can't stop your own hands.
Yeah.
That was something that spoke to me, and to depict that properly, you know, if you want to tell the story of Jekyll and Hyde, you've got to show the brutality of Mr. Hyde, right?
Exactly.
Otherwise, Jekyll's not going to be horrified.
Mm-hmm.
So everything to me was justified, you know. To me, it wasn't gratuitous. Other people may feel differently, but
I loved it.
I can't control that.
Yeah, I loved it. For both of you, I'm not gonna reveal the details for my fans, but talk a bit about maybe Logan, you can respond about the concern people have about AI and that whole aspect. You know, maybe the automation are going to take over not just our bodies or whatever. Because the film kind of brings up those kinds of issues, like, oh my goodness, Terminator also brings up that issue, like what if they're taking over? Like, do you have that fear personally yourself?
No, I don't think I share that analog need that Gray does. And certainly there's a lot of, I think, social commentary in Leigh's script and movie. That was something I kind of had to, act. And while I think that I think Leigh would agree, there's a lot of aspects in our everyday life that technology is great for.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of larger pieces that it's kind of scary, and when it comes to war, when it comes to the biodynamic, but it's a little bit beyond my pay grade to even talk about it, because again, I'm kind of all for it. My iOS is updated.
Yeah. Although, having said that, you prefer writing in a notebook to like using your phone?
I'd say phone, or I'd say computer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say computer. Just faster.
Yeah. Do you have that concern?
I have a foot in both camps. I feel that technology is a wonderful thing that can improve our lives greatly. Mm-hmm. When I think about devastating diseases like cancer, I think we're going to be totally reliant on technology to solve those problems. Cancer is not going to be cured by some tree we find, floating in the Dead Sea, or it's going to be cured by tech, and it'll be a beautiful thing. Then there's the other side of it, and I think when you're talking about the medical field, you're talking about technology that is needed. There's a problem, there's a disease, and we need to cure it, and tech fills that gap. The part that worries me about tech is the part where there is no need and we voluntarily give ourselves. When we start living our social lives inside of these things, when we connect more with this than we do with the person in front of us, I don't think that's a small problem. And I think it's well documented by people a lot smarter than me that it's a full-blown epidemic. I think your average person spends about 5 hours a day on their phone once you compact it all together, which is scary, and I'm wondering where that road goes. So I think there's two forks in the road. There's that wonderful side and that other side, and the balance, as always, is where we need to be. We need to find the balance. Human beings aren't too great at balance, but if we could somehow take advantage of the amazing things about tech whilst also policing our own instincts about giving everything of ourselves to it, we'd be good. But that'll be hard because that's up to us individually, and we're like addictive creatures, human beings. Because once we're addicted to our phone, we're not going to give it up easily.
That's true. It's a tough one. Now, last question. Is there going to be Upgrade 2? Upgrade sequel?
I'm going to consult my crystal ball. Hello. Ooh, I see it.
Do you have 30 million friends?
Yeah, exactly. How many Facebook followers do you have? If you can get each one of them to see this movie twice on opening weekend, then I will give you the sequel.
I'll get the word out.
Get it out there.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man, thank you.